Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Club Lorcana podcast. I'm Jeremy Bertrioni, one of your hosts. With me, as always, is Syed. Say hi to the people.
Hello, people.
And this is our exciting Set 5 preview podcast.
Cool.
Before we get started, I like to give people a quick snapshot of the metagame, and I think we're actually going to be skipping that because the metagame currently is a weird lame duck metagame with Bucky being errated, but the rest of Set 4 being legal. This metagame is basically only relevant for people going to the challenge in Toronto.
Yeah. That format is terrible.
The format is not great. You can expect to see a lot of red, purple, and things that beat it. I don't really want to talk too much about it. I did not get a ticket for the challenge in Toronto. I've actually been pretty unlucky. I didn't get a ticket for Vegas either.
Yeah, I'm quite sad about that. I'm on a mission to persuade you to still come.
To Vegas?
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a really good time. I think the ticket is going to be cheap in terms of flying there. And our living situation is going to be like $30.
I think that the Vegas trip is really good. I might go to Vegas. I'm obviously not going to be able to make it to Toronto. I do want to say I top 32'd the Dallas challenge. We didn't record a podcast where I ever got to say that.
I'm so stoked that I just want to say that I'm so proud of you for getting there, bro.
It's a little bittersweet. It's kind of heartbreaking because obviously top 16 was the big nationals invite. The thing that I said was like my big goal. It was even another really big dagger because all the airplanes were not functional, so a bunch of people didn't make it to Dallas. And there were 2,100 signed up, but 1924 or whatever was the people that actually made it.
Yep.
And if it was 2,000, it would have been 32 players got into the nationals, but since it was 80 less than 2,000, possibly because the planes didn't show up, my finish wasn't good enough. So I was like, oh, if only Delta had worked.
Yeah, I mean, there's always luck in play with those type of things, but I think that a lot of people who are going to be going to all of these are not going to have the experience of making day 2 at all.
Right.
And I think that once you cross that threshold and you know it's possible, then I think that a major challenge has been like you've conquered something, and now that you know that's achievable, then the next step is, I think, easier.
I hope I just get another bite at the apple with Seattle. That would make me really happy. Is if I got one more chance, at this point, that's all I can hope for.
You're definitely going to get more chances, 100%.
To qualify for nationals?
Yeah, I mean, rumor has it that you're going to be able to go to nationals and qualify there.
I mean, I'm definitely planning to go to the nationals, if anything, just to go with you, right?
Yeah.
We got to go.
Hopefully it's in Disney World.
I want to go to Disney World and play LCQs all day while kids at the park. I want to be visible for park guests so they can be like, what are those guys doing? And it's a bunch of people that look like they're not having fun at all. They're sweating out $10,000 money matches. And kids are like, Mom, how do we not grow up to be them?
No, I mean, if I was a kid and I was walking in the park and I saw that, that's exactly who I would want.
No, same. I would want to be those people
I'd be
too.
like, oh my God, how do I get in there?
So the Toronto metagame, we're probably not going to talk about it too much. I will say I've been having a lot of success playing against red purple with my patented item aggro deck. I have a really good build.
Yeah.
I can send it to you to put under here. The change since we've talked is I took out the Auroras because they weren't really good and added 2 more McDuck Manors, so that's 4, and added 4 Mickey Mouse, the 3 drop.
I mean, that card is great. Once we watched the video and the guy was like, this Mickey Mouse card, it makes me want to play it over any other 3 drop, so I had to cut it.
Right.
Yep. So ever since we watched that video, we're like, our blue-yellow deck should probably contain all the Mickeys.
Yeah. So I have a blue-yellow aggro deck that's been pretty good against red-purple. I think current builds aren't really built to handle really aggressive decks. Gains lore pretty fast. It plays the Anna package, so you can do things like if you have 3 guys in play, quest with the Anna that gives other heroes +1 quest, and then quest with the Piglet. And the Piglet. So I tapped 2 of my guys sideways, and I was like, I gained 6 lore, and I was playing against you, and you were like, what do these cards say again? You picked them up and read them, and I was like, yeah, dude, it's 6. It's 6. So I've been having fun with that aggro deck, but mostly this is a format that we're going to kind of bypass, if that's okay, I think.
Yeah, let's skip set 4 without Bucky. I mean, I want to say that I'm glad that Bucky's gone. I know I posted videos about Bucky, and I just wanted to say, my mindset is always I'm gonna play whatever wins the most.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes I'm gonna majority of the time I'm gonna try and beat what the most popular deck is, because I think that gives you the most amount of points. But if it's not possible, I have to accept that and play what's going to give me the highest win percentage. And so that's always going to be my stance. So if you're on the train of trying to win over, like, not over having fun, for me, the most fun thing is winning.
Same.
So I'm just going to always try and produce results, right? And so so if you're on the train of trying to win and that's the most fun thing to you, then just play what I say that you should play, because I just think that the system that we have in order to figure out what the best deck is quite insane.
Quite insane. Without Pixelborn, we're often looking at some of the best players in this game. There's the best players in this game, and then there's Zach Bivens, who recently got back from Bologna. He almost day 2'd. He was 1 point shy, I believe. But Zach Bivens has played crazy decks this whole time. He was on Yellow Steel when in Chicago, I think.
Yeah, and Amber Steel again this past weekend.
Amber Steel again. In the first challenge, he played Amethyst Steel.
Yeah.
And he played Yellow-Green in Dallas.
Yellow-Green in Dallas.
He played Yellow-Green in Dallas.
Oh, how did he do in Dallas?
He made day 2, and I think he lost in the top 64.
Oh, yeah. I remember. Okay. Yeah, no, Zach's been on a tear, but similarly to you, he's been short of his goal, which is the Mickey.
His goal was the Mickey. My goal was Nationals. He actually barely qualified for Nationals, right? He qualified for Nationals because he had first seed. He lost his top 32, ended up getting 17th place, and one deferred down.
Exactly.
Which made me think, if I get in that position that I was in this past challenge, where I'm like basically undefeated and I can draw the rest of my ones in, I might play 1 or 2 of those rounds to try to lock up that first seed, because it makes a big difference, especially toward the end of the season. There are going to be so many more deferred invites.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that the people that you're rooting for are the people who are already in Nationals. So that would be me. So like, if I make it, then I could possibly pass it down to you if you're in that position.
Right. I mean, it could even be a situation where we play in the top 32 and there's no awkward, like, oh, you scooped me so that we're both in Nationals, because if I'm in first seed, go into that spot, when I hit top 32, I made Nationals anyway.
Yeah. No.
And we can just play a real game of Lorcana.
Yeah.
Which is probably pretty bad for me, but it is what it is. Only because I've been getting mollywopped in testing lately.
Yeah, I mean, I completely changed my outlook on that. Like, when we were playing Green Steel, it wasn't the player who was playing the best that was winning the most.
Right.
But I was still, and so I was losing a lot. And my mindset was like, this is the worst it's going to be. And so, like, when you look at my tournament for Dallas, which was, 44 points, 1 point short.
1 point short. And it was even a heartbreaker if you weren't there. Zan was on camera feature match for the last round, and everybody said that he was going to make day 2 if he won. So he wins that feature match. Everybody's like, oh, congratulations, you deserve it. I think the commentators are like hugging him and all that stuff. We get out and we check the standings, and he like missed it by that much. And it was just like such a... there's lots of like heartbreak that can happen in tournaments. Obviously, tournaments are designed to create losers and not winners. But one of the worst moments that's actually happened a couple times in Lorcana is when you think you get there, and then it's taken away. That's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it didn't hit too hard. But yeah, I mean, it does sting when you're like, okay, I just want to make day 2. That's when the real tournament starts. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it was just like a weird, the weirdest feeling about that tournament was like, I felt like I won as much as you could possibly win without getting like good, like the amount that I won, like for like the the amount that I think that you should get for winning as much as I did that weekend.
Right.
So I finished 44 points, which finished top 128 for day 1. Then they had the side event that was worth like 1 million tickets, And we didn't really oversleep. What happened was our Uber ran super late, so we ended up showing up for round 1 late, and so I got a game loss. And I was like, yeah, it was like, I'm glad that the judges upheld that, but felt super unlucky because we were like 10 minutes away from the convention center, and for some reason our Uber ended up taking like 40 minutes on the Sunday. So got a game loss, but then I ended up just winning a whole bunch, and I ended up finishing with 5 2-0s and 3 1-1s. So I basically just recovered. Even with the game loss, I still ended up finishing 4th.
Great.
Out of like, I don't even know, 500 people or something.
Game loss in best of 2 is so brutal.
It is so super brutal.
Really
but like tough. I like basically I had 10 2-0s, 6 splits.
You're talking about over the whole weekend.
Over the whole weekend. Wow. And 1 0-2, which was to like the 60 card mirror of green steel.
So for my tournament experience, what was interesting about it is that for me it felt like a very easy tournament.
Yeah.
Because I only played against green steel one time, and we split, and that was on camera. You can go back and watch it. And then Tan and Grace did an interview with me where he basically said I did a really good job, and it made me feel really nice, which was a great morale booster. So I like thought that it was pretty easy, but I ended up playing a bunch of red purple mirrors. And honestly, the reason that I felt like the tournament was so easy is because I did the work and knew like back and forth what was going on in those mirrors. And so I was able to win those, and they felt easy. But they probably aren't actually easy. This is something that you and I talk about a lot, where we'll be playing a game and we'll be like, oh, I had no decisions. And it's like, well, actually, you could have made any number of these mistakes that plenty of newer players might make. But because you have that rock solid foundation of all the practice and the testing or whatever, you're not going to make mistakes. So I thought that it was an easy tournament because I never hung a rabbit out. I never wasted all my goats. I set up making them wrath into I play 2 castles, and that's like a pattern that I had established. So the tournament felt easy, but it was because I was sitting on the bedrock of all the work I've been doing on learning about red purple.
Well, I mean, one of the things that we did before this tournament was friends of ours, local friends of ours, we ended up going Thursday, and we had a pretty intense testing session.
Yep.
And Jeremy and I got to play a decent amount of mirrors of red purple, but I ended up playing green steel. So we also got green steel versus red purple. And that's when I was like, I feel great as long as I play against red purple, which I believe is going to be the most popular deck.
Yeah.
And it being the most popular deck, I ended up only playing against it in the final round, and Jeremy ended up playing against it majority of the time. And I would say like that was the matchup where we had the most amount of plans.
Absolutely.
And it was 28% of the field. And sometimes even if a deck can be 38% of the field, you can just miss it. Like for example, in Chicago, it was blue-red was 38% of the field, and I was playing purple steel, which was like
a lock to beat it.
And I played against blue-red one time. I obviously 2-0'd it, and finished 1 point short, like 1 game short of making day 2 there as well. So sometimes you can have the perfect deck for the tournament, but if your matchups don't line up perfectly, the tournament can feel a lot different. So I would say Dallas and Chicago felt like I was fighting not to make a single mistake.
Right.
And I would say in Chicago, I don't think I made a single decision that could have resulted in me getting a better result. And I think that in Dallas, there was one decision that could have changed the outcome, but actually ended up not changing the outcome.
Okay.
And I don't remember exactly what it was, but I just remember at the end of the term, I was like, there's one decision that could have changed something. But like the way the draws happened, that it wouldn't have made a difference. So basically the way I look back at that tournament is like, okay, if I actually made every decision perfectly, there was 0%. There was no possible way to make day 2. And that part is, is sometimes tough to swallow. But I don't think that a lot of players get there. And I think that everybody's goal should be able to to get there. And these tournaments are so much value that if you're able to get to that position and do that over and over again, the value you end up getting from this tournament is so much that it compensates for you breaking in a couple of these tournaments.
100%. I mean, these are great tournaments to go to. Okay, so tournament analysis. I think the viewers are like itching. You want to get into it. Set 5, Shimmering Skies.
Yeah, let's move on. It's time to move on, and we're going to talk about Set 5, Shimmering Skies.
Set 5, Shimmering Skies.
Start us off.
I mean, okay, so a lot of podcasts do this a lot of different ways. We do top cards each color. I personally don't feel like that's great. I like to talk about what decks we're excited for, what decks we think we're going to play.
Yeah, I think what we should say is like, okay, these are the top tier decks from set 4, and whether you think that they're going up or coming down, and what are decks that are stepping up to the plate.
So the big ones that I think are stepping up to the plate is we were kind of living in a world without aggressive decks in set 4. I think the aggressive decks are back in a big way. I want to talk about Amber's Daisy Duck, the 1/4 for 1, not inkable, that quests for 2, and whenever you quest, they reveal the top card of their deck, and if it's a character, you draw it. They draw it.
Yep.
I said you draw it because I'm used to like Ragavan, which would be like, all right, I quested, I get to play your card for free.
That's a magic card.
That's a magic card.
That's dumb as hell.
Well, you know, and then we got to keep making red 1-drops good. But Daisy is a little bit Goblin Guide-esque from Magic the Gathering. You know, it's attacking for a lot, but it's also like pretty hard to deal with. You know, if they play a 2-power 1-drop, that's still 2 hits that they have to put into the Daisy. So Daisy sort of revitalizes this big archetype. And so people are putting together yellow-purple decks that have Daisy. There's a new purple card that's 2. You can't ink it, and it just gains 2 lore. Kind of the lava spike of Magic the Gathering is now here in Lorcana. And I think that deck probably has some legs. You know, you can get a couple of like turn 5 or 6 wins, or even turn 4 or 5, you're at like 17, and you have a bunch of turns to draw the gain 2 lore spell. I think a card that deck will play, and this is a card you're extremely high on, that people don't necessarily know it's going to play, is there's a new item. And I want you to talk about it because people don't think it's good.
What's the name of the card?
The item?
Yes.
I'll start looking it up. I don't know the name of the card.
It's
like Amethyst Codestone. I'll tell you in a second. I have Codestones in my head, Zan, because I've been playing the new Neopets game.
Which is hilarious.
I have to just play all the card games, okay? That's going to be...
No, I'm all about it. I mean, right outside this door, we got 10 different DC deck builders sitting.
This looks like the Amethyst Chromacon.
Amethyst Chromacon. Okay. This card, I think, is the best card in the set. Not close.
Okay.
Basically, it puts out 2 archetypes. What do you call it? Amber, Amethyst, and then Amethyst... Emerald. Amethyst Emerald was probably tier 2 last set. You know, I don't think it made a single copy made day 2 of Dallas. I think 2 copies made day 2 of Bologna.
Yep.
Bologna. I don't know.
Bologna.
Yeah. So I think the reason why this deck is going to be super insane, I think that the Emerald Amethyst version is going to be the more insane version, and I can talk to you about why. Basically, we have to rewind all the way back to set 1. And so in set 1, I told Jeremy that I believe that you could just play a bunch of 1-drops, and you could play this 2-mana Magic Mirror type card.
Beast Mirror.
Which is a item that you can play for 2 ink that's inkable, and then once you have 0 cards in your hand, then you could pay 3 ink to draw a card. But you have to have 0 cards in your hand. And I played a couple of different versions of that, and it was a super fun deck, but it was just missing something. It just wasn't quite there. This card now takes away that 3 ink that you have to pay, gives your opponent a card which you don't care about.
Right.
Because you are just playing so many cards that it is impossible for them to keep up with. So you can imagine that you're playing 21 drops, and then you're playing 8 locations,
Right.
right? And that not only are you playing those 8 locations, you're playing four goats, and then you're playing 2 uninkable gain to lore.
Right.
That's unbeatable.
I'll tell you what that card's called in 1 second. I got them all. It's gathering knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah, and so you just kind of just win the game. You go like 1 drop on 1. You can play the Chromacron on 2.
Yep.
And on turn 3, you play 3 1-drops.
Or 2 1-drops, and then turn 3 play the Chromacon, and then a 1-drop. That's what I prefer.
Yeah, or on turn 3, you can play an Ursula and a 1-drop.
Okay, all right. We could talk all day about all the things you could play.
Right.
So I think the aggro decks are sort of the big winners if we're talking about decks that are getting a lot better.
Yeah, I think they all enter tier 1, and then it's totally I totally think it's possible that they kind of push back
Ruby Amethyst.
Ruby Amethyst and Amber Steel.
I think, yeah, those decks are going to have trouble sort of dealing with everything. They're going to have to really reconfigure because right now, Ruby Amethyst is not well set up to beat aggressive decks.
Yeah.
And I think the aggressive deck got so much better. Maybe something like the Mulan from set 4, something that on turn 5 you can play it, come in, kill 3 things, sort of get back into the game might be a route that they want to take. Remember that it's bad.
I mean, I think Amber Steel has a lot more tools to be able to deal with it because right now they're playing like 2 grab your swords.
So let's talk about Amber Steel. What kind of cards are they getting? I think that
amazing.
Tell me about them.
I mean, it's getting the Prince.
Prince Naveen is the new 4-drop, not inkable. It's a 3/3 that quests for 2, and when you play it, you can play a song from your hand that has 6 or less cost for free.
Yes, that card is amazing, but there's a cost to that card, and that it's uninkable.
It's uninkable. It's card disadvantage if you want to think about it that way. It's
but it's in a whole new world deck.
That's true. I think it does not have Singer, does it? Why do I think
it does? Singer 6.
Oh, it has Singer 6. Oh my gosh! So it can grab your swords next turn. You know, that's pretty good.
No, for sure. It can grab your swords. It's great with grab your swords. And their whole strategy is probably going to be 4 grab your swords and 4 Naveens.
So Amber Steel gets a little bit of an upgrade too. I think the Naveen that card velocity is going to be really important because your opponent playing something like the Amethyst Chromacon is going to make Prince Naveen a lot better.
Oh, yeah. It's going to make Prince Naveen a lot better. But the way that you would play around it is you just you let them draw the card, and then play the Ursula, and you try to hit that, hit the grab your swords.
Right.
And if they, and you also know that A Whole New World is a super dead card in the matchup.
Yeah.
But one of the cards that is like super difficult for a deck like that for Amber Steel to beat are locations.
Yes.
And now that you know, purple has access to a 3 mana 8 life defense whatever location, it's
the library.
It's impossible.
It's tough. You know what color got a lot of ways? There's a couple colors that got a lot of different ways to deal with locations.
Okay.
So green has the new You're Welcome card, which is a 4 ink song that basically can get something off the board. It's item, character, or location. And then they draw 2 cards. Once again, this set really playing with the idea of giving your opponent cards and you're not worried about that because you get such good value on your end.
Yeah.
And then blue, I believe, got 2 mana, put a location into their inkwell.
I mean, that card is spectacular. So I think that blue steel has a higher chance.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking the same thing.
Right? Like, because if you think about how blue-red used to play against A Whole New World is with Fishbone Quill.
Yep.
And so blue steel no longer plays A Whole New World, and they just play Fishbone Quill. That's how they can take advantage of those additional cards.
Yep.
And just play Tinkerbells and grab your swords. So I think that the aggressive decks both jumped up. They beat the whole format. I think blue steel jumped up, and blue red is close behind that, and then Amber Steel Steel and Ruby Amethyst Ruby Amethyst are behind all of those.
Ruby Amethyst taking a lot of hits. Do they have any? I mean, are they playing the Chromacon? Do you think they got anything special for this next set?
I don't think that they play Chromacon, but I think that they have to play cards like deal 2 damage to the song.
Teeth and Ambitions?
Teeth
two
and
to
Ambitions.
Two to each?
Yeah, or do you think that there's a card that we're missing? Do they have like a grab your source type effect?
You know, what's interesting is in this set, Ruby Amethyst got a lot of ways to deal with Diablo. There's a lot of things that come in and get evasive and can attack. They have the new Elsa, which is, it costs 5, but it comes in, it can exert something, and it has rush. And I think it gets a turn. And it can quest for 2. So Ruby Amethyst got some upgrades, you know? They have like upgrades to Maui.
It needs something in the 1 and 2 slot.
Right. The 1 and 2 slot is still like a little, I don't know what they're going to play. Yeah, there's nothing in this set that's like really great for them.
Like what they really needed was just like, they could have even gotten like a Triton's Decree.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that would have made a huge difference.
Like really fast, you sacrifice a creature.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally possible that the matchup is so bad that they have to play, what is the one? It is a action, one ink, bounce character.
Befuddle.
Befuddle.
Remember, we were befuddling our brooms to have an infinite deck in set 1. Everyone loved that.
That was terrible. I will say, like, cards like Turnabout Followers and Broom have just gotten so much better. The one drop Broom.
Yes, those cards are. I mean, they were looking good at the end of set 4, and
I mean, they're so insane with that location. Let's not even go there. I mean. And Diablo looks way better in a shell like this, where Diablo is like, "Oh, I'm just a distraction."
Mm-hmm.
What are we gonna do?
Emerald Amethyst certainly looks like it can gain a lot of lore and have a ton of cards.
Yeah, like its backup plan. If let's say people start figuring out how to deal with any of this stuff, is like, oh, let's run more ways to gain lore.
Mm-hmm.
And they got infinite options.
I think Ruby was probably one of the strongest colors, and I don't think it got a lot this set. You know, the good Ruby cards, it's like there's like a Shift Donald Duck that's not very inspiring. Let me look through the Ruby really quick and see if I can see anything. But in the meanwhile, you talk about Ruby and tell me if you have had any good impressions from it this set.
I mean, Ruby definitely a very strong color, but it's definitely going back a tier.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think that this is all intentional.
Right.
And honestly, pretty genius from the Ravensburg team. I think that everybody was longing for aggro decks, but I think when aggro decks are the most powerful deck at the beginning of a game,
mm-hmm.
it doesn't allow players to try cards.
Right.
When a control deck is the most powerful deck, people get to do everything that they wanted and then lose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a much better experience.
Yes, I agree. Getting to do your deck's thing is better than their Daisy Duck killed me before I got to play even the first card that I could play.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I just kind of looked through Red and I was pretty uninspired. I didn't really see anything that I liked.
Yep.
But Red was the Red had a chokehold on removal.
Yeah.
And it's only a matter of time before they give us another Wrath.
Yeah. I think that a deck that we haven't talked about, I think Green Steel has a good shot.
Green Steel, I think its biggest win is that it gets the new Pete. Pete is a 3-mana 3/3 quest for 1, and when it enters the battlefield, your opponent can play actions until your next turn.
Yeah, that's a pretty. Does it quest for 2 or 1?
I think that it only quests for 1.
That is a really interesting card.
But I'll tell you in a second.
I mean, it gets access to a lot of different things, but Grab Your Swords is going to be one of its, like, a really strong play pattern that they want to do is basically play Diablo on turn 2 and then
Quest for
Play
one.
let the storm rage on.
Oh, great. No, I'm telling you the new Pete. Only Quest for one.
Yeah. Oh, that's what you're telling me. Only Quest for one. I mean, I think that Benja's gonna be high impact as well.
Yes. You're going to want to deal with a lot of the new items. For example, Amethyst Chromacon.
Yep.
What about, okay, there are some cards that people are really interested in. They think they're really good, and they're kind of in the more like combo-y space. So we have like Mirabelle, which is a 5/5 for 5 that quests for 5 that you can only play if they have 5 other characters.
Ooh.
People are liking it in sort of this like green-yellow combo shell where you potentially have like a queen that can discard it to gain 5 lore, stuff like that. What do you think about this? I mean, I think it's like too cute, but what do you think?
I mean, I think that shell has definitely gone up. I think that it's gotten what's the green song that deals with everything?
You're welcome.
Yep. You're welcome allows that deck to like draw more cards and get rid of some of its garbage, which is nice. But I think that Under the Sea has gained a lot.
Yeah.
Gained a ton.
Under the Sea is going to be great against aggressive decks. It's probably going to be the premier wrath of the whole thing. I think yellow-green definitely
And the biggest problem
legs.
that deck had was it couldn't deal with locations.
Right, and now it has You're Welcome for the locations.
But at the same time, you know what's terrible for that deck?
Tell me.
What's worse than seeing someone go, location on 3 and location on 4? If you just play against Amethyst.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because You're Welcome doesn't really solve that problem because having guys on the board is what's supposed to solve that problem. And Under the Sea also doesn't solve that problem. So you're having a tough time against locations. I wonder if that'll balance out because people aren't going to be able to play as many locations. Like if Blue Steel's really good, then you can forget about your locations because they have Rise of the Tides. They have now this 2-mana one.
Let's talk about the blue card that's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
It's again, I don't remember the name, but it is blue.
Yeah.
It's inkable.
Okay.
It costs 2 ink.
It costs 2 ink.
And you can put a item into that player's inkwell.
Or location. Yes. I think we already talked about it, but I don't remember what it's called exactly. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah. I think we briefly mentioned it.
Yes, we did.
But I think that a card like that is quite incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doubles up on your ability to ramp onto, especially for a deck like Blue Steel, right?
Like close.
Like they play Popsicle, they play Fortisphere, they deal with both of those. They like get rid of their own card that already replaced itself. And then its biggest problem was, how do we deal with Queen's Castle?
Right.
It has an answer now.
Yeah, this is something I said this a little earlier. The card is called Hideaway.
Hideaway. Cool.
It depicts the fairies from Sleeping Beauty putting something in a basket.
So, I mean, it might be time where we're like considering Blue Steel.
I think Blue Steel is going to be like the answer to aggro. Somebody call R&B. Get him out of bed. He can make the deck. So Blue Steel players are talking about this one card. I want to know what you think. It's Jafar, the new legend. It's a 6-mana 0/7 with Challenger 7, and it says that as long as their characters cost 4 or less, they can't challenge. And it quests for 2.
Terrible.
People like Braden are extremely happy about Jafar, and they think it's going to be really good.
Dies to Brawl.
I mean, dies to whatever you want, and also is extremely expensive.
Yep, terrible card.
And then also doesn't stop them from questing with all their guys next turn.
Terrible card. Yeah. And if I try to Steel Man,
that's what you should do.
Yeah, if I try to Steel Man it hurts. It hurts.
The card is on its face awful, and some people will tell you that it's really good. The Steel players are excited about this new Jafar.
I mean, everybody wants Jafar in a whole new world to be good, but as we know, in the movie, they are not part of the same thing.
Jafar doesn't interact with that song.
Yeah, Jafar is like, Jasmine's mine.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah,
Jafar is bad, We on this podcast would like to go on record and say that we don't believe in Jafar.
I mean, Jafar is a great villain.
I'm a big villain guy. Yeah. I'm pretty sure my shirt says villain right now.
Does. Can you
guys check? Does my shirt
say
shoot.
Villain? Yep.
Villain on my shirt right now?
I did have an opponent who had a Jafar shirt that said influencer.
Interesting.
It looked awesome.
My shirt's a Shaolin soccer reference.
Shaolin. Oh, it is? I love Shaolin soccer.
Yeah, they had the team, their jerseys, the evil team, it just said Team Evil.
Team Evil.
Right. And villains. So this is my villain jersey.
That's cool. So backtracking. Yeah, every set that goes by, that combo becomes more and more dead.
Of course.
Yeah. I think that is almost Whole New World is also just becoming it's an amazing card, but it's becoming harder and harder for it to be the answer. Like, imagine if you Whole New World and your opponent just goes, oh, let me just gain 2 lore, gain 2 lore, gain 2 lore, gain 2 lore. Okay, it's over. Great.
So there is a new combo because they printed a 1 mana Cogsworth that says,
when a character enters, it gains
it gains rush.
Yeah.
Or when the Cogsworth enters, it can give something rush.
Oh yeah,
including itself.
Yep.
So there's the combo is that there's a red item that says whenever you challenge, your next character costs 1 less. And there's an Amethyst Facilier that says whenever one of your guys dies in a challenge, this is similar to the Flotsam, it goes back into your hand.
Yep.
What you can do is you play the Cogsworth with that Facilier in play. You say, this Cogsworth has rush. And then you can hit your opponent's thing for 1, and the Cogsworth expires, goes back to your hand, and your next thing costs 1 less. So you can do that infinitely. If you add in cards like Shere Khan, which says whenever you challenge something, you gain a lore, that could be you gain a lore for every health that your opponent's characters have. That'd be pretty good against aggressive decks. The problem is that the Facilier costs 7. It's not an inkable, and it has shift 5. I think it's from set 1.
Yep. Isn't there a item that does that?
The item is the one that makes things cost less. It's part of the combo.
Okay. Isn't there an item that does the same thing? That if a character died in a challenge,
there's a location that does it. It's Ursula's place,
but it costs 1 to
equip it to the maybe 2 even.
Yeah, that's super convoluted. I thought there was a green item that did that.
But then we're in so many different colors. Oh, there is a green item that people are going to want us to talk about. It's the item that says your opponent's maximum hand size is 3. Oh,
yeah. Kendall messaged me about this.
Mm-hmm.
Kendall was like, "What do you think of it?" Like, I think it's good. I think that's what he said. I think a lot of people think it's good.
A lot of people think it's good. I think it's kind of bad. I think giving your opponent, who's like primed to try to beat aggro decks, like a 1-turn heads up notice that you're only allowed to have 3 cards in your hand. I think it might nab 1 card as they go, oh, okay, I don't worry about drawing too many cards. And they play out their guy that they wouldn't have otherwise. And then they discard a card and move on.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I told Kendall was, I think it's terrible. It's unplayable.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrible. But basically, I'm starting to look at formats a little bit different. So, how do I describe this? So, at the beginning of set 4, I made a couple of videos. One of the first one of this like line of videos was, Green Steel is the best deck in set 4.
Mm-hmm.
Second best deck is Blue Red. Third best deck is Yellow Red, which was wrong. Which it should have been Ruby Amethyst at the time.
Okay.
And I was going back and forth on those 2 decks, but at the time we hadn't figured out like Flynn Rider and to Sisu yet.
Right.
And so like, this is week 1, I think, of set 4. And someone on the Green Steel video writes, Hidden Cove is broken in Green Steel.
Right.
And so I think I replied and I said, no, I don't think that there's room for it in the deck. And the lens that I was looking at it from was just week 1. You know, I wasn't thinking from the lens of if green steel is actually the best deck and everything becomes about green steel mirrors, what could happen?
Sure.
So now I'm gonna say, what would it take for this card to be good?
Mm-hmm.
Is if I'm right or whoever is saying that they think this card is broken, the Omicron, whatever, Amethyst 2-mana card.
Amethyst Chromacon.
Amethyst Chromacron is the best card, then it could be a Mirror Breaker type card.
Oh, great.
But it is
Prince
uninkable.
John's Mirror.
Yeah, and you would probably play 1 or 2 of them, and it would just be there just because any person who's playing Chromacron, they get punished.
Pick up your 2 copies of Prince John's Mirror on release.
It's probably going to be too high at that point.
I do want to kind of go over a conversation we had earlier about I was a little disappointed in the card Revive. I'm a big fan of Reanimator strategies in card games typically.
Yep.
And Revive basically just says it's 5 ink. You can't ink it. You return a character from your discard pile to the battlefield.
Yes.
Pretty cool, but the character has to cost 5 or less.
Yes.
I'm upset. And it can't be Mirabelle because I think you play it. The new Mirabelle that quests for 5.
Yes. So Reanimator effects are bad for the game because it creates a restriction on the type of characters you can have moving forward.
Sure.
And a great example of a card that I think is like starting to get there is cards like not exactly the new Simba, or is it the new Mufasa?
The new Mufasa.
Like the new Mufasa gives you a bunch of card advantage, but it takes away from your inkwell.
Right.
In order to do that.
So it's great if you play it for 8 or 10, kind of bad if you play it for 3.
Exactly. But another card is the green 7-mana cow.
Yep, Clarabelle.
Clarabelle. Yes. So Clarabelle is a type of effect that's like Gristlebrand in Magic, if you're familiar.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting closer and closer to that. And inevitably, we're going to have those type of absurd characters. And if this early in the game you give us a Reanimator effect, later down the line, it's inevitable that
we'll be able to reanimate them.
Exactly. And so it breaks the whole fundamental rules of inking. And I think that the way that they're doing it right now is in a safe cost way, right? Like if there's a card that's such a good 5 ink cost card that you're bringing that card back and wanting to play more than the average amount, kind of the way I was trying to do with Ariel, because I was like, in set 3, Ariel is the best card. I'd rather just play Hades and just try to bring it back and just only play Ariel because it's the best card.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so I think that keeps everything much more safe.
Okay. And I think my counter argument was, as time goes on in Lorcana, eventually there are going to be too many sets for there to just be one format. I think that's an inevitability.
I disagree. I think that they found a great solution to nerfing cards. Which they might not do it the same way every single time. Like if Amethyst Chromacron is way too good, then their answer to that might be different. It might be a ban-worthy card.
Mm-hmm.
And, I hope that we can avoid, like, bannings, and I hope I'm wrong that this card is going to be insane. I just don't think it creates, not playable games. It's going to create so playable games, like, so much play, but I think inevitably that card advantage and being able to act first on those cards is the thing that's going to matter.
I can agree with that.
So it's going to be healthy. And I think that with that being said, I think it's possible for us to get to 10, 20, 30 sets.
Yeah.
Without ever needing another format. The moment we introduce a new format, then there are those people who played the game in the early days and the people who are playing the game and coming in, and you're separating both of them.
Sure.
And we don't want that separation, and we've seen what that separation causes in Magic. People who are experiencing completely different things and causes a divide, and there's no agreement on like where like it becomes harder for the people who are trying to figure out what's good for the game to be able to have direction in figuring out what's good for the game, right? They just start picking whichever one they like, and that's where we end up. But right now we're all
doing the same thing, which is awesome. I think one of the big things about Lorcana is it's really good that we're all doing the same thing.
Exactly.
Right. And I do want to, I want to make it clear that this thing that you're saying, you have sometimes a weird habit of saying a quite like radical and like crazy idea as if it was the most normal thing in the world. I think this is one of those times when I say it's pretty clear that they're going to have to divide the game into two formats. For those of you who don't know, it'd be one eternal format where you can play all the sets, and then one smaller format that's probably the most recent, let's say 7 or 8 or 9 sets. Something like a Type 1 and a Type 2, which was the early days of Magic the Gathering. When I say that, most people agree with me. They think that over time, there are going to be so many sets that a new set will either have to be so broken, every card, for people to want to buy it, or it won't make any impact. And so they'll say that in order to prevent that from happening, for new sets to remain not broken and still keep things relevant, you break things off into two formats. So sure, the new set might not impact the eternal format as much, but it will definitely impact the new format. I'm just explaining the like standard way of thinking, because what you said, I agree with and I really like, but I don't want to like not give it any gravity. What you said is a pretty radical idea.
Well, it's only a radical idea because, so I think that Magic adopted the League of Legends way of thinking, which was like create champions so people buy the champions.
Yeah.
Because they need to play that. So in this game, there's a huge difference. And I'm going to tell you, people are going to buy Disney cards because they're Disney cards.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are less packs are open, then they have more value. And then they get bought out anyways.
Sure.
Okay. So that's one inherent difference. Then the second part that you have to look at is, like, think about it like this. You have a wheel and of all the different combinations. So it's what 5 times 5 is 25 minus 5 because the same colors can't be.
Oh, it's I think it's 18. It's 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1. So 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10, 15.
It's 15?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So if it's 15, then what you want to think about is if there are like 4 top decks, that you want to constantly move it in a circle. As in like like right now we're about to make aggro decks good. So it's possible that yellow purple and green purple are the 2 new decks that are coming that were not tier 1. And you can continuously move it all the way around.
It makes sense.
And the circle keeps going and going and going.
Okay, great.
And that would be the ideal way to move it forward.
I like it, but like I said, I was mostly explaining the side of it that's so obvious to me, but might not be obvious to someone who this is their first card game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm explaining the standard way of thinking, and then I wanted to give gravity to your idea and not just have people think like, oh yeah, I mean, of course. It's like, not of course. Like this is a crazy way.
Yeah, no, of course. Like, so I mean, like after when I top won my Mickey in Atlanta, I had a moment to talk to Ryan, who you did as well, right? And you know, he was like talking to us, Ryan, one of the creators for Lorcana, and he was talking about his time in Magic, and that he had a good time in Magic, and that like now he was working on this project, and just based off of that small conversation, nothing in specific, like. Something that like stood out to me was he has a positive experience from Magic, but he's building something that's different, that wants to improve on his time in Magic. And so with that being said, like every step of the way, it seems like they're trying to try the other angle.
Yeah.
That Magic
didn't try.
Didn't try.
So yeah, you're right about that. And I have applauded them for it. I mean, he gave me a lot of hope because he said he designed Zedru the Great-Hearted, which I think is the only cool commander card.
What does that card do?
I've explained it to you before, but it costs 1 and Jeskai, so red, white, blue. You can pay and give them a permanent on your side of the battlefield, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and gain a life for every permanent of yours that somebody else has. So that card. So it lets you like give people Oblivion Ring. Like, here's an Oblivion Ring, and they're like, "What does that do?" And you're like, "Nothing." And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you're like, "I gain 1 life and draw an extra card because you have my Oblivion Ring."
That is super cool. Yeah,
it's so cool. Because like. You can do it however you want. You know, there's things that are bad to have on the field, so you can give it to them. Or there's things that are like neutral to have on the field, you can give it to them. Or in Commander, maybe something good on the field, like a Temple Bell, where you tap each player draws a card. You can give it to somebody else.
That's an amazing card. But what I'm going to say right now, the thing that they're doing in Lorcana is infinitely harder to design than a card like that. That's a card agree. That we're like, oh my God, it does something so cool. But for the average person coming into a game, they'd be scratching their head for days.
They're trying to figure out what it even is trying to do.
And so right now what they're doing is like, okay, here's a complicated thing, but we're going to make it so simple that someone who watches Disney and has never played a card game before understands exactly what's going on and is somehow relevant to that character.
So it's almost time for us to sign off. Yes. I wanted to hit some like fun little side topics of mine really fast.
Yep.
Star Wars Unlimited has an online client, Karabast. It seems to work pretty well. I like it a lot.
Yep.
Set 2 is out. I've been playing the Jund Crate Dragon ramp deck.
I need help setting it up.
Great. Okay.
So I'm down to set it up and start jamming some Star Wars Ultimate. This will, I think that, just want to put this out there. I think Lorcana is gonna be my number 1 until something unless something drastic happens, and I can't imagine that something will.
So what I'll say about Star Wars Unlimited is that the organized play has always looked really promising. So I think getting ready for when it drops that we hit the ground running on the organized play is great.
They're on season 0.
Correct. And I can't wait for season 1. So Jund Crate Dragon is what I'm playing in Star Wars Unlimited. I like it a lot. The new Neopets Battledome trading card game out. Right now, about 300 people in the world play it. That's an estimation based on the tournament at Gen Con, how many people have bought product, and how much product exists. Mm-hmm. I'm also on the Discord for Neopets Battledome, and it's like 3 people. And the subreddit has like 100 people. Not a lot of people in it. If you want to play, I think the best deck in the format is so there's like 2 sort of like pre-con decks in that like the sets are really like obviously saying this is a deck. There's one that synergizes with you discarding cards, the Jadora deck. Mm-hmm. You're going to play a lot of Ghost Neopets in that one. There's one that is the Fairy deck. It's sort of like a Cascade combo deck, high roll. And you're going to want to play a lot of Fairy Neopets in that one. And then I think there's like a secret deck where your guys just have really good stats and you get to play a bunch of hot dogs. I think the 2 best decks are Jadora Freeze, which basically, if you're from Magic the Gathering, it's like you're playing Vintage where you just time walk every turn. Because it has like a bunch of Yawgmoth Will effects and like play a card from your discard, and the card from your discard is time walk. So you just time walk every turn. And then the really good stat deck, I think, is like an aggressive deck that takes advantage of like the dice rolling mechanic in Neopets. I think those are the 2 best decks, and I think the Fairy deck is too high-rolly and consistent.
That sounds incredible.
The game is a dice battler, not that great, but whenever you get to take basically infinite turns by time-walking your opponent forever, that's pretty cool.
The other card game I'm focusing now on is One Piece. I just ordered Red Purple Law and the Yellow Black Luffy deck.
Great.
And I'm just waiting for some cards from TCG Player, and then I'm going to start going to the locals.
Incredible. So that's the fun little other things we're doing, especially like right now we're in a little bit of a Lorcana lull.
Yeah.
So, let's work on the side quests. I'm going to be... I think that I'm currently the best Neopets player in the world.
I don't disagree.
But I didn't make it to Gen Con, where I could have played in the only tournament that's ever happened.
What was the prizes?
I think it was like nothing. Oh, no, it was like a case. 12 boxes.
Then you just have to list it and hope it sells.
A case of Neopets?
Yep.
There's some chase cards. It might be worth it to open a case. You can get the
Well, we've listed one card.
Yeah.
And let's see if it sells. If it sells, then I totally get it.
I pulled a Queen Fiora in my Neopets box. Let's hope it's worth $160 because I don't think the fairy deck is even that good.
Great. All right. Let's wrap it up.
You can find me on Twitter, MOX Jeremy, Mox Jeremy. I need more followers. I'm fluctuating. I keep going to like 1116 and now I'm at 1111.
Yeah, please follow Jeremy.
Okay, great. And then where can I find you?
Just here at the YouTube channel.
Right here on the YouTube channel. I'll post the blue-yellow deck for people that want to beat up on red Amethyst at locals. And that's it for me. Bye, guys. Thanks so much.
Peace. Thank you.